Today, I want to talk about one of the important concepts in money management and financial planning, that is inflation. If a layman is asked about definition of inflation, he will typically define it as the rate at which the general level of prices of goods and services increases over a period of year or so, and they will consider that like the baseline rate of inflation, like 6% or 7%, that is commonly published. And that is quite true. Inflation is basically defining the rate of increase of prices of goods and services. However, that's a very symptomatic kind of definition or understanding of inflation. Today, I want to take it to a little deeper level so that uh, we understand more the gravity of inflation and how it kind of affects each of us, our society, our country, and our economy. All of us would have seen during our lifetime, during childhood, we used to get the same ice cream or chocolate at some prices, and maybe 20 years down the line, what happens? And same with the prices of fuel. Obviously, the prices have gone up. The price of gold, it has gone up substantially. So why does this happen? Why the price goes up? Is it just because the demand is increasing for these goods and services, or there is something more to it? So increase in price, as I said earlier, is the symptomatic definition of inflation. The real cause of inflation happening is, or the real thing that is happening behind the scene is that the purchasing power of currency keeps on eroding. And with fiat currency in circulation these days, all the currencies all over the world are fiat currency. The gold standard is no more, like, although people still feel that the gold standard may be prevalent, but there's no gold standard out there. It's a fiat currency which is in circulation. And in the fiat currency model, the inflation is inevitable. I will explain it maybe in some other video because that becomes a very deeply technical subject. So inflation is happening in developed countries like US and European countries. Inflation is at a much lower level, like 2% or 3%, like that's the target. Although these days there also the inflation is quite high. But in a developing economy like India, the inflation is at much higher level. The baseline rate is 7% to 8%, although the target is again like to keep it within 4 to 6%, but it has exceeded the target quite recently. Now, this inflation affects everyone quite severely because if you have 100 rupees now, and with that you are able to buy certain things, 10 years down the line, you won't be able to buy the same thing with that 100 rupees because, as I told earlier, the purchasing power of your currency keeps on eroding because of this inflation. So if you want to do some retirement planning for maybe 20 years, 30 years down the line, and if you start saving, keep a target based on that, inflation is an important factor to take into consideration. Because whatever target you set today, it is going to get exponentially increased, in a compounding way increased because of the inflation factor. So that way, inflation is an important factor and it needs to be taken into consideration. Now, how to counter inflation in financial planning? That's an important thing I want to highlight. If you keep your money in savings account, the rate of interest that you are going to get over there is 3%, 4%, maybe some banks may be giving 5%. But given that the inflation rate today is somewhere between 6% to 7%, that means your currency's purchasing power is eroding every year by 6 to 7%. And from savings account, you are getting a rate of interest, say 4%. So that difference of 2% every year you are losing. You are not even able to retain the purchasing power of your money. You are losing the purchasing power of your money. If you keep your money in fixed deposits, you will be getting somewhere between around 7%. And after considering the TDS deduction, it may come slightly below the inflation rate itself, the interest that you may be getting out on the fixed deposit. So even if we say that it matches the inflation, all that is happening is in fixed deposit is that your money stays at the same value over the period of time. It's not growing. Even if you think that you are accumulating the interest on top of the money that you have put in over there, in reality, your money is not growing, because behind the scenes, inflation is eroding the purchasing power. So the only way to beat inflation is to invest your money in those areas, in those assets where the growth is happening beyond the inflation number. And that happens in very specific, very few sectors. You need to choose those areas where to invest so that your money grows beyond the inflation number, maybe 10%, 12%. And then the more you can beat inflation consistently, the more growth you will have. And that's what leads to wealth creation. So that's an important area I want to highlight, that you need to be savvy and knowing about money management and how inflation works and how you can beat inflation. Only then you can become financially free and you can become wealthy. So we keep on talking about these topics in detail in my MegaMoney community inner circle calls. I would invite you to join my MegaMoney community so that you learn more about these things and become a good money manager and become financially free. That's all for now. Thank you. Bye.